Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Darkest Timeline podcast. And in these dark times, this is the podcast for you. Unfortunately, it is just me, but there'll be something from the week when it was recorded. There'll be games, movies, and TV. Who knows what else? Let's find out together. If you're a YouTube watcher, you could also be a YouTube subscriber. Just clicking a button and away you go. It's a big help to the channel, it's a big help to us, we appreciate it, and helps us to give back to you guys. So everybody's a winner. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Oh, right, there we go. There we go. How you doing? You alright? You well? Managing to keep safe in these strange times? Feel a bit chesty this evening. And typically, literally, since I've come to do this, I swear down, absolutely my intention to start early this evening. As I say every week, it really doesn't matter to you guys the time I start, because you get it at the same time every week. But for me, psychologically, yeah, it's got stuff going on, haven't I? Ooh, I'm being naughty. I'm a little blue can. So, not a massive amount to talk about this week. Which, you know, it's one of those, it's probably a sign of the times. I've just realised that's what happens when you don't keep proper notes, ladies and gentlemen. You have to add things on the fly, and it sounds terrible. So, it's last week or so, maybe a couple of weeks now, I've had that, I don't know what it's called. I know it's got something sense of your own mortality. But I can't remember what the something bit is. Not that long ago, turned 40, expected magical things to happen. And magical things did not happen. So it was a bit like, oh, okay. But I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think it might be a little bit of a slow burn. I find myself to be very conscious these days of foods, exercises, exercising, so on and so forth. And maybe that was the change that I was looking for. Maybe that was the thing that I wanted to happen. Who knows? But recently, I've had this this mortality thing, this fear of death, becomes a little consuming at times. Just this kind of, you know, who am I going to leave behind, and what's it going to be like for them, you know, from the small things to the big things, you know, how old will I be, how old will they be, you know, they're going to have to go through all of my stuff, like my junk, which is what they'll consider it to be. That sort of stuff. And that kind of, will they miss me? But then it ultimately flips back round to, I'll miss them. And that sort of thing. And that's the point where I start, that's where I start getting emotional. Now with this, all of this ties into something that's coming further into the podcast. So, initially this might seem strange, but this ties into something which we'll come back to. But yeah, recently I've had this sort of sense of my own mortality, and maybe that's driving those other things I spoke about, the watching what you eat and how much exercise you're getting and stuff. I don't know. So remember that for later. Anyway, like I say, it'll all come clear. There's been a birthday since last we spoke. One of those things, a little bit emotional, a little bit of an emotional time. I'm having a bit of an emotional time. Again, we'll come to that in a bit. I'm quite stressed at the moment. Stress is quite high. And that's having a knock-on effect to other things. Find that I need to talk to the cat better. I don't talk to the cat very well at the moment. But when one of them's trying to literally beat the other one to death because they both had ham. It's like, really? This is why I had to come away from doing the work I was doing to come and sort you two out? So it was birthday at my eldest. Had a birthday. Bit of a weird one because sort of see her the day before, not see her on the day. Gonna see her in a couple of days, and I sort of got it into my head that that was kind of in a couple of days that was kind of her birthday, even though I do know when her birthday is, and on the day, just tried to sort of go about my day. I was having a conversation with the baby, which, as you can imagine, a little bit one-sided. I gave her a piece of cheese, and I was like, "Look, I've got you an extra piece of cheese. Daddy looks after you." And like this sort of simultaneous thing happened where I was saying that it was a big sister's birthday, whilst saying about this cheese, and she was patting me on the back of the hand, and that upset me. So that ties into something else. I feel like, again, maybe wondering what this is all about. But yeah, things are high stress. Add to that this fear of mortality, and and this sort of like this emotional time. Yeah, it's quite emotional. So, because there was this birthday situation, went out for tea. Big thing, out for tea. Doesn't happen often, especially in the current climate. Went to the Hut, Pizza Hut. So I'm like, so this is how it went. Oh, I'm going to Pizza Hut. And then it was like, shit, now what? Can't go to Pizza Hut and not eat, because that would look weird. So it's like, I'll have salad bar. Salad bar's shut because of the situation. Oh. So me and Leanne ordered a pizza, just not even a big one, it was like a medium, thin base vegetable pizza. And when I say vegetable pizza, I do mean vegetable pizza. There was a piece of pepper on one of the pieces I got that was as big as the piece of pizza. I was talking to somebody the other day about it. They were like, did it have cheese on? Because I was saying I was trying to be healthy. Did it have cheese on? It's like, no, there wasn't any room for cheese because of the number of vegetables it had on it. So this was how it went. I had to, in my head, I was like, right, I'm going to have to skip breakfast. There's a meal I can do without. I'm going to have to get through to tea time, go for pizza, and then whatever, Saturday, get up first thing, go for a big run. And that's what I did. 3 slices of pizza, a couple of forkfuls of macaroni cheese, a handful, not even a handful of chips. That was that. And yeah, I'd skip a couple of meals, go for a big run. Did go for a big run on Saturday. Didn't have to stop on said big run. Which I was pleasantly surprised, quite impressed, was happy. Stepped on the scales today. Still managed to lose some weight. So all in all, not all that bad. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about, honestly, I know this all sounds weird, but things will become more clear further in. Promise you. I've been listening to a podcast recently. So because of my limited podcast listening now, I really need to find a way to listen to podcasts while I'm out running. The only problem with that is that would involve taking my phone with me, and honestly, I think I'm nearly at the point now where I can cut the final cord and let the phone go. Nobody texts me, nobody rings me. This isn't woe is me, this is I think I can actually turn the phone off. Nobody texts me, nobody rings me. Somebody rang me from the Seychelles this evening. I'm sure that was legit, absolutely. So I don't take my phone with me because A, I don't want to put it in my jogging bottoms because it's going to pull those jogging bottoms down. B, I don't want to put it in my jacket because the pockets don't zip up, so I'd end up losing it. It's happened before, but I do need to find a way to get back to listening to podcasts while I'm out running. So, back to podcasts. Don't get through that many these days. Been listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. For those of you who do know, cool. For those of you who don't, Michael Rosenbaum, most famously known as Lex Luthor from TV's Smallville. Also quite well known to me as the voice of the Flash in the Justice League and a multitude of other DC animated voiceover voices. So I quite like him, got a lot of time for him. One of the things that I do really like about his podcast is it's very, I was going to say psychological, but it's like therapy, and he himself says that. So the last few days I've been listening to a podcast that had Corey Feldman of Goonies, for me more than anything Lost Boys fame, and podcast started. Michael Rosenbaum's talking, Corey Feldman's talking, and then there's this other voice. I'm like, hang on, who's this? A female voice. Turns out to be Corey Feldman's partner. And I can safely say this, in all of the years that I've been listening to podcasts, and believe me, that's a lot of years, I have never heard someone have their partner on. I've had it where people have had like friends, you know, they've got them and their friend have come on, but I've never heard one where it's the partner. Your mum's house, that don't count because that's two people doing a podcast who just so happen to be married. This was like he'd invited him on and he just brought his missus with him. But as the time went on, you could kind of see why. So, first few minutes, Mike Rosenbaum said something to Corey Feldman, and this woman's like, have you read his book? And he's like, no, haven't quite got around to reading it yet. I fully intend to, but unfortunately, at this point in time, I haven't read it. You need to read his book. A few minutes later, he said something else to him. And this woman's like, yeah, you really need to read the book. A little further into it. Well, that's covered in the book. And like I say, you really do need to read the book. And it's like, alright. She was a nutritionalist. Spoke very highly of the benefits of celery juice. Corey Feldman went on to talk about his life as a child actor and how awful that was, and then his adult life, and you could kind of build a picture as to why this woman was on this podcast with him. Yeah, I was quite interested to hear the conversation because he's like one of those actors that, you know, you have those people that you kind of like grow up with. He was one of those people. You know, I remember a lot of his films and so on and so forth. So I was really interested hearing what he had to say, but then, yeah, these interruptions. It's like, yeah. So that's basically it. Possibly a very strange start. I'm in a very strange mood these days. I don't know what to tell you. A lot of stuff going on. Too much stuff going on, some would say. Me being one of them. A lot going on. So, let's just talk about some entertainment stuff. I watched some films. Some of those films were not new films to me, so I've completely scrapped those from this list today. So I'm just talking new movies. Not new to me, films I've just seen. I think one of the films is fairly recent and the others are not. I've written down some TV stuff, but I feel like a bit of a fraud. We'll come to that. And we've got some computer games, and then I'm out. I'll leave you guys in peace for you to, wonder what all this was about. So, I watched a film. Now let's get this way out front. I watched a comedy. This film was listed as a comedy. It was a film called The Bucket List. Something I'd seen a while ago advertised. It was available on Prime, so I watched it. I mean, talk about false advertising. The Bucket List is a comedy like Life of Pi is a feel-good movie. Now, part of the reason I wanted to say it was two heavy hitters in the acting world. Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson. Holy smokes. In a lot of ways, doesn't get better than that. So we're off to a great start. It's a fantastic start cast-wise. Had a guy who I'm sure was in Will and Grace. Not something I watched loads of, that programme. And that was that. This film was broken down into 3 distinct sections. So, right, warning, spoilers ahead. This is one of those where I feel I need to talk about this because this is what links back to what I was talking about before. The premise of the story is Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. Morgan Freeman is they call like blue collared worker. Like he's a mechanic, has been for 45 years or something. I think they said. Jack Nicholson is a man who is a presumed billionaire. Makes his money from privatising hospitals. Because of one of his the freaking hell would you call it? One of the ways that he makes hospitals more efficient is he says that no matter who you are, 2 beds to a room. So when Morgan Freeman turns out has got cancer and Jack Nicholson also then turns out to have cancer, they end up in the same room together, start out hating each other. As time goes by, they start to become friends. Now, when I said before, spoilers, a lot of this is going to be me telling you what happens in this film. Because we need to talk about the stuff that happens in this film. The first third is them in hospital dealing with cancer. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, listed as a comedy. So there's a scene where Jack Nicholson has his head shaved, like full blown. That I don't believe it was cinema trickery. Pretty sure they just shaved his head. And then between the two of them, they're like, oh man, it was awful. Like And I do understand Hollywood acting, so on and so forth, but they must have based it on stuff. It was them going through, like, having operations, chemo, dealing with chemo, throwing up, running to the toilet, being freezing cold, all of it. And then they both get terminal diagnosis. 6 months to a year left to live. And that's where the bucket list comes in. So basically, Morgan Freeman writes a bucket list, gives up on it so far, Jack Nicholson gets hold of it, adds a load of stuff to it. So the middle third, yes, that's right, the middle third, is them doing the bucket list. They go all over the world, jump out of planes, go to see things. Morgan Freeman wants to go to the Himalayas. Presumably wants to go to Everest. I guess, I don't know. So there's this whole thing about going to the Himalayas and so on and so forth. And then in the end, they return home. Now, the middle bit, again, not overly funny. I don't remember thinking the first part of this film was a hard watch, but this middle bit, hilarious. I don't remember thinking that, but it's okay. The best is yet to come. They return home. They return to their lives. Everything's hunky-dory. Morgan Freeman is not doing too well. Admitted into hospital. Needs to have an operation. Does not make it. Now, at this point in time, I'm like, when you can feel it. You can feel it brewing. Starts in the chest. I was like, that hit me in the feels. And then it's like Jack Nicholson's character dealing with, like, the loss of his friend. And I think somehow Jack Nicholson's character ended up getting like he was in remission and he was going to be fine. Don't know. So then there was this, like, living on and carrying on without his friend, and he had to, like, read stuff at the funeral, and simultaneously, like, he meets his granddaughter for the first time. One of the things on the list was kissing the most beautiful girl in the world, and he gives his granddaughter a kiss, crosses it off the list. All at the same time all this is going on, he's also doing the eulogy at the funeral. And that combination of stuff, that was it. I was done. Like, through the first third of the film, I'd been like, I've got a bit of dust in my eye, sort of situation. You know, when you got that wet eye, it's like, I'm not crying, but a build-up of fluid has appeared at the corner of my eye. The back third, by the time we get to the funeral and, like, Jack Nicholson, like, meeting his granddaughter and stuff, that was me done. I was tapping out. I was crying like a baby. It was simultaneously dealing with, like, a whole host of the things that make me instantly upset. Being the person left behind. That's why I can't watch Up. Can't watch Up because it makes me cry like a baby. Because the whole thing is about being left behind. You're with someone for X amount of time, and then they die, and they leave you, and you have to go on without them. That upsets me. That is something that has always upsetted me. And then you got the whole thing with, like, the little girl and all that, and I was crying like a baby. That was like... What day will that have been? It was either Tuesday or Thursday. Could have been Thursday. So, I had that, you know when you have that like, oh, I had a big cry and I felt much better. I felt like it was stuck. And then I had that situation on Saturday. See, I told you it would all come back around. I must apologise. I did give a spoiler warning at the start. I must apologise because I feel like anybody who didn't fast forward through that, who maybe hasn't seen that film, now probably doesn't need to. I needed to get it out there. I needed to explain to you what I was going through. The roller coaster of emotions. So I might have ruined that film for anybody who may not have seen it, who might have wanted to and didn't fast forward. But, you know, them's the breaks with the old spoiler alert, aren't they? I can promise you now I didn't cry anymore. So, next one on the list, The Infiltrator. Let's face it, I got a lot of time for Bryan Cranston, basically because of the whole Breaking Bad thing. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody. Breaking Bad to me is probably the best TV show there has been. It's up there with others that to me personally have been the big TV shows of my life. Sopranos, Firefly, Angel, Breaking Bad. So I feel it gives Bryan Cranston a lot of leeway. There's been stuff he's done, you know. Do we need to talk about Godzilla? Do we need to talk about the Power Rangers movie? There's stuff he's done that you kind of have to just let it go, don't you? There's other stuff he's done where you're like, yeah. I recently reviewed The Upside. Really enjoyed that. Lovely little movie. So, The Infiltrator was a film that I'd seen advertised a while back, you know, when it came out. Very interested to see it. Not the sort of thing I would go to the cinema to watch. So that was that, basically. And then, as with a lot of stuff these days, it was available on Prime. Like, could give that a watch. Which I did. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable film. It was basically they were going after Pablo Escobar, and rather than going after the drugs, they went after the money. Bryan Cranston's character was undercover. John Leguizamo was in it. And you know, they're all undercover and they're all doing the undercover thing. There's a lot of money involved, so you know, it's that sort of thing. They did that thing which I've seen in a TV program, like a real life crime TV program, where they get everyone together at a wedding and then arrest everyone. A very enjoyable movie. If you like that sort of thing, which I do, it was very enjoyable. Bryan Cranston was great in it. John Leguizamo was very good. Yeah, I mean, he's another one of those. He's very good in pretty much everything he does. You know, so much so that we can forego the whole Spawn thing. Although I thought he was alright in that. One of those situations where it's hard to review something that's good. It was a very good film, very enjoyable. I enjoyed it. What I will say about The Bucket List was it was a good film. You know, really gets you in the feels. Definitely not a comedy. Infiltrator, good film. Don't really know what to tell her without doing the, well, here's exactly what happened in that film, like I did with the Bucket List. It's very much it was a good film. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. Yeah, that was kind of that, really. I watched The Gentleman, film that has been on my list for a good long while. I've actually had it in my basket until I watched it the other day, and then took it out of my basket because I didn't need it anymore. I was going to buy it, try not to buy stuff these days, so that was that. And then, like Knives Out, it went on to Prime really quickly, and it was like, sweet, get that bad boy watched. So, Guy Ritchie of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, and a load of other stuff. Now then, did I start watching something today that... I'm going to have to do the thing that's really annoying, because I have a... Yep. I started watching the first Sherlock Holmes today, just for something to pop on. And that's also Guy Ritchie. Funnily enough, not the only Guy Ritchie film I've watched recently. He had that King Arthur movie, which was a huge flop. But mostly, from what I remember, he's had a real good run of films. Although, why the hell is he listed as having something to do with that Aladdin film? Wow. Oh my god, he directed that Aladdin film! Oh, I didn't know that. Oh. Anyway, crack on. Get on with what you're saying, old man. Come on. So, The Gentleman. Really wanted to see it. There was a lot of, again, another one where the cast was really stand out. Matthew McConaughey, like him, got time for him. Charlie Hunnam, like him, got time for him. Colin Farrell, come back to him. Generally I like him. Generally I've got time for him. But I will say something in a bit that might be controversial. Who else was in it? Hugh Grant. And that was one of those things. Hugh Grant played a very different role to anything he's played up till this point. Because he played like a Cockney wide boy scumbag. He was a reporter. So I watched it. And ultimately, here's the thing. It was fine. It was fine. The biggest problem with it was a Guy Ritchie film. So here's the thing. From the moment it starts, you're just waiting for the twist. And it just sort of goes from there. So when you're watching it, you're like, yeah, I get it, but get on with it and tell me the twist. And you know the twist's coming, and you know that it's like, well, this guy's going to catch this guy out, but really, everybody's going to get caught out by this. And on one hand, it's like, it might be time to change that format. On the other hand, the twist was really, really obvious because of how little attention they paid to it. They went, this is this is that, and this is the other, and you don't need to look at that or think about it anymore. And that was that. That was it. And it's like, There's a twist right there. That's your answer. So where it might have been a really good film, and it might have been really enjoyable, and the acting was really good, all this, you just spent the whole time going, get on with it, will you? Tell me the twist. And then I felt cheated towards the back end, because it's like, that thing that we showed you earlier that we tried to make out wasn't important. Yeah, that was really important. It's like, yeah, I know. It was always going to be. So that was that. Some really nice things in it. Some, the twist was fine. The other twist was fine. That sort of thing. Did make me feel that the Guy Ritchie, what I would call a Guy Ritchie film, like, he directed Aladdin. Well, that's not a Guy Ritchie film, is it? Nobody's going to turn up with a couple of shotguns in Aladdin. He directed another film, which we'll talk about shortly. Again, that was very, a very stylized movie. Not a Guy Ritchie film, even though he directed it. See what I mean? It's like Lock, Stock and Snatch. They're Guy Ritchie movies. The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie film. Feel it's maybe that style, that format's maybe a touch stale. So I said I was going to come back to Colin Farrell. I like Colin Farrell. Got time for him. Sometimes less time than others. He was in The Gentleman and he was perfectly fine. Apart from, he had like a comedy role. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, you're going to say that the comedy role didn't suit him. I'm actually going to say the exact opposite. I think that Colin Farrell should do like some comedy work. Now I know, was that In Bruges? Sure, that was considered at the time to be a comedy. I watched it once and thought it was the dullest film I'd ever seen. Colin Farrell's delivery of a comedic line, the way he delivers it, is spot on. I genuinely would love to see him in a comedic role, delivering lines the way he did in that. I'm pretty sure I've seen him do something similar, but I can't think what it was. Very, very, I enjoyed that role very much, and feel like I say that he should probably do some comedic roles. The Gentleman, absolutely worth a watch. If you like Guy Ritchie, it's going to be right up your street because it's a Guy Ritchie film. So there. So weirdly, from one Guy Ritchie film to another one. I watched The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a film that I wasn't sure that I was overly bothered by it. It's like, Man from U.N.C.L.E. Okay, you're doing a film remake of a TV show. I used to watch TV show a little bit. It was a bit before my time, so I was only able to watch it, I'm going to say probably on VHS. But it was fine. It had, what's his name, Robert Vaughn? So as far as a concept, making a movie of an old TV show was fine. But yeah, this is one of the examples where a Guy Ritchie film, not a Guy Ritchie film, because it's an existing property. So there was aspects of it that were very stylised, which I feel is where the Guy Ritchie aspect came in. But ultimately, I imagine he probably had to stick in a particular guidelines. I can't imagine, Henry Cavill's character being like, "Alright, darling, how about a cup of tea?" Especially because his character was American. Weirdly, Hugh Grant turned up in it. I was saying yesterday that I feel that Guy Ritchie sort of gets hold of actors and then kind of doesn't let go of them. I really enjoyed it. It was a very enjoyable film. In play, at points, a little bit hard to follow with the why of why some of the things were going on. Nuclear weapons, spy movie, nuclear weapon, cool. There was a point where I was like, why are we doing this again? It was a bit like that. It's like, I get that there's a nuclear bomb involved, but why? It was very puzzling for a while. Ultimately, it was a good film. It was very enjoyable. I would recommend that as one to watch. I think initially I'd been maybe put off it because I thought it was going to be a bit campy. Can you say that these days? But it wasn't. It was quite Bond-esque in a lot of ways. So yeah, Man from U.N.C.L.E. The reason I was saying that I've written some TV down, but I feel like a fraud. I haven't watched it all. I've watched half of episode 4, season 2 of The Boys. I'd said originally that I wasn't getting on with this series. That kind of changed, but what didn't change was I don't have the kind of sit down and watch The Boys time. There's a couple of points in a week where I could maybe sit down and watch The Boys, and more often than not I end up finding something that needs doing, like a job that needs doing. I could sit down and watch The Boys, or I could make tea for later, sort of thing. So it's kind of that situation, unfortunately. I watched half an episode, so I don't feel like I can really talk about half an episode. It's certainly picked up, it's certainly a lot better, but I will have to update you as to whether I get round to watching all of that episode. Realised last week that I didn't tell you guys about something. I felt very I don't know what you'd call it. I got a VR game. Don't talk a lot about VR these days. I think since I stopped doing the VR boxing, it's gone back to only getting those certain points in time in a week where I can actually play it. So there's that. But I found out that The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners was available on the Quest, and I'm like, I absolutely have to give that a go. A little bit pricey as far as games go, but I did a lot of looking around, and it was saying that it's pricey because it's probably one of the longer Quest games, 15 hours. So I ummed and ahed, and in the end I was like, you know what, I haven't had a new Quest game for a while, so let's do this. So I bought it, put it on and started playing it. So this will be 2 weeks ago, and after everything I'd seen, everything I'd heard, started playing it, and I didn't like it. I'm not going to lie, I didn't like it. it was, shortest version is, it's not what I was expecting. Just not at all what I was expecting. I'd seen all these videos and I'd seen all this stuff about it, and I honestly thought I knew what it was going to be like. And it wasn't. And it really put me off it. Another thing is, the way it works as a game is, it's a survival type thing with zombies. So as far as guns are concerned, more importantly, ammo, there's no ammo for guns. And I mean no ammo for guns. So what it wants you to do is use like stabbing weapons to basically, for want of a better way of putting it, stab zombies in the head. So that's fine. It's got some really interesting mechanics for the way, like if you don't swing hard enough or in the right place, you are not going to kill that zombie. You're going to end up with a zombie that's alive with a screwdriver half sticking out of its head. But all that means is that you then have to push the screwdriver further to basically kill that zombie. Really interesting mechanics. The thing with stabbing zombies in the head is you've got to let them get close. And if you get it wrong, they're on you. And this was another aspect of the game I was like, I don't like it. Any long-time listeners will know that me and zombies have a very mixed history. I'm not super cool with zombies. I've always had this feeling that if the zombie apocalypse happened tomorrow, I'd be the guy that gets bitten holding a door open for someone. And then, that would be me. That would be the end of my story. Yeah, I'm a little bit weird with zombies. Generally fine, but so yeah, when the killing the zombie goes wrong, then it's on you. It's often dark. They get in your face. They're trying to eat you. It's a bit daunting. But as I say, this was 2 weeks ago. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been playing this game. And what I initially started out with, I don't like this game, I don't want to play it. Forcing myself to play it, I ended up with, actually, this is kind of cool. These interesting mechanics I was talking about. Learned more about the game and the aspects of like upgrades and stuff, because the upgrade system and facility I just did not understand. Messed around with it a bit and I was like, oh, I get it. You put scrap metal in, you get upgrades out. Okay. So did a bit of that. Got some weapons and stuff. Went back into the game, did a bit more. Unfortunately, part of it hadn't saved, which I was a bit put out by, which meant I had to do an entire section again. What was nice about that was it gave me a better feel for the game. So I'm enjoying it. I need to play it more, which I don't think is a surprise, but yes, I absolutely need to play it more. But I am enjoying what I've played so far. From a game I am enjoying to a game that bores me to tears. I hate to say it, because I know these games have a massive following, but I'm actually at the point now where I'm like, can I just stop playing this game? Gears of War 4. Honestly, how those games have the following that they do, I do not know. And ultimately, the shortest version is that those games are not made for me. I am not their target audience. I am not boring shootout to boring shootout to boring shootout kind of computer game player. Any time that game gets remotely near the opportunity to be even remotely interesting, yeah, it takes a sharp a turn and runs the other way. It's just dull. It's just boring. And I know that it's like, I've got Gears of War 5. I guess I'm like, I need to play 4 so I can play 5. But can I not? Because that's what I've done up till this point. I let all these games go. I said, these games are not for me. I am done with these. And here I am. Oh God, I just put Gears of War 4 on for a bit. And regret it. Part of me is in the camp of let's just stop playing it. You know? Part of me is in the camp of I've put a lot of time and effort in, can I not just stick it out for a little bit longer so I can say I finished it? So I'm very torn at the moment with that. From Gears of War 4 to Forza Motorsport 7. A perfectly fine driving game. It's very much in the camp of perfectly fine. I will have to confess, I do need a variety of assists to be able to play that game, because I've played Forza games, the motorsport, not the Horizon ones. I've played Forza Motorsport games previously and just been like, who they think has the ability to play those games, I do not know. When I selected like the difficulty and stuff, it put all these assists on for me, which made it so that I could actually play it. And I keep looking at the assists going, oh, maybe I can turn that one off, or maybe I can turn that one off. And I'm just too scared to do it because I know I won't be able to do it. It's an enjoyable game. Been unlocking cars, been doing races. I love driving the Hoonicorn. That car is insanely fast. Which, you know, it's one of those, it has its ups and its downs. It doesn't corner amazingly, but get it on the straight doing a couple of 100 mile an hour and you know about it, as do your opponents. It's got some nice little like additional things like car bowling. That's a bit of fun. I did one last night that was going through gates, like checkpoint gates. You've got like 6 minutes to do the whole course, but if you crash into a gate or you don't go through it, it's time penalty. So you've got to get that balance between going fast enough to do it in the time, but slow enough to not hit the gates. So was that. It's fine. It's enjoyable enough. It's very much a game where I put it on to play, kind of to relax, I guess. So yeah, it's enjoyable. I'd recommend it if you like a good driving game. I am still playing Dishonored 2. What I mean by that is every few days I put Dishonored 2 on and play it for a good long while. But it's a game that I find drains me. Mentally drains me. And I have to like leave it a few days before I can go back and play it again. I was stuck on a level for ages, and then I'd gone away from it and I came back and I managed to do it, which gave way to another level which was really cool. You get this thing called the timepiece, which has got these like, I don't know what to call them. They're like insect wings, but they're like kind of like mirrors as well. But basically, they allow you to look into a different time. What that means, and then you can move through time. So you've got the past and the present. So you're in a mansion that's falling down. So everything's like broken and stuff, which sometimes means that you can't open a door. But you can look through the timepiece, see that the door is in pristine condition, travel through time, open the door, and then travel back again. Cool little function. The thing about being in the past is that it was a full-blown working like mansion that had all these guards. The guards aren't there in the present. So you've got that sort of, if I change it to the past, then I might be able to get through this door, but there's a guard on the other side. So I'm making those decisions. One of the bits that was really cool was trying to work out how to get through a wall that had been like smashed through in the present, but in the past it was completely intact. But there was loads of debris in the way, and it was like how to get through that. There was another thing like a puzzle. It's like trying to get into a safe that in the past is broken and on the floor, but in the present is pristine, but it's locked. So how to get into the safe. It's really cool aspects. But I did that level, really enjoyable. But then I had a conversation with somebody today who's played it and said that timepiece device isn't in the rest of the game. Like, it's there, but you don't use it. It's like, that's a real shame. It's a really good device. I'm enjoying the game, I'm enjoying the experience, but it does take it out of me. I have to have a couple of days off. You know, when you complete a level and you just like, I need to leave that for now. So yeah, there's that. Finally on the list of games, there's a game called Battle Chasers. I meant to get the rest of the name. Night War? Maybe? Battle Chasers. Night War. A game that I downloaded as part of the Game Pass thing. Reason I downloaded it was because I used to read the comic book of Battle Chasers, and I read it from when it first started, issue 1. Read it for a little while. Was at the back end of my days of reading comics, so I only read a few of them. It was fine, but it was the point in time when I was growing out reading comics. Jump forward X number of years, and I mean, like 10, 15 years, and it gets a game. Now, at the time, I found that surprising because I don't remember it being a huge comic. But that's cool, that's good, it's enjoyable, it's fun. It got its own game, that's nice. And I remember seeing some stuff about the game at the time, about, you know, it was getting good reviews. Again, surprising for a relatively unknown comic to get a game, and then the game was quite good. I downloaded it as part of Game Pass and haven't touched it. Last night I was like, man, I don't want to play Dishonored. I'll play Forza, I'm sure, but I don't want to play Gears of War either. Tell you what, how about I put on that Battle Chasers game and see what it is, because if it's rubbish, not my type thing, etc, etc, I can delete it and free up some space. So let's do that, which is what I did, and I was pleasantly surprised. So it turned out to be a turn-based RPG, which I'm down with that. Really nicely put together, a couple of really interesting game mechanics which I can't say I've seen in other games before. and it really makes you think. And it was really enjoyable when you're not doing your fighting, you're running around on a map, and you start out trying to find some of your colleagues, and it was a very enjoyable experience. One of those I do feel that it's maybe, again, I won't go back to immediately because I've got other stuff that I'm trying to crack on with. Dishonored, I need to make a decision about Gears of War, Forza, but definitely one that I would play again. So there you go. That is that. A bit of a up and down kind of time as far as podcasts are concerned. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you for sticking with me. And that's that. I will speak to you next week. Have a good one. So there you go. What do you think of that? Another one done. Tell you, where do they all go? Into the abyss. YouTube watchers, big thank you if you're a YouTube subscriber. And if you're not, a big thank you to you for subscribing. When you click that little button, click for notifications while you're there as well. Why not? Everybody jump over to cookiecast.com. We've got various links there for you to be able to get in touch with us. Drop us a line. Tell us how you're getting on. Tell us if there's something you want to talk about on the podcast. Who knows? We might even get you on. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.